Stories tonight in Y News. The Philippines registered 4,496 new COVID-19 cases today, the lowest daily tally since July this year.
29 schools withdrew from the pilot run of limited face-to-face classes in the country.
The Philippine Coast Guard deploys free ride buses for the exclusive use of commuters on EDSA. Malls in the National Capital Region welcome the guidelines on operations during the holiday season.
China is now considering a law that would punish parents of children who exhibit very bad behavior.
Forbes ranks the best employers in the world. Good evening, Philippines and the world. We are now reporting live from Quezon City. Today is Tuesday, October 19, 2021. I'm Herlene Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news. The COVID-19 alert level system would be implemented in some areas outside Metro Manila starting tomorrow, October 20. The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases approved the expansion in areas where there are COVID-19 community transmissions. Negros Oriental and Davao Occidental will be under Alert Level 4. Those under Alert Level 3 include Cavite, Laguna, Rizal, Siquijor, Davao City, and Davao del Norte, while Alert Level 2 will be enforced in Batangas, Quezon, Lucena City, Bohol, Cebu City, Lapu-Lapu City, Mandaue City, Cebu, Davao de Oro, Davao del Sur, and Davao Oriental.
Ito naman po ay kabahagi rin ng pilot study. Kung mapapansin niyo po, ilang rehiyon pa lamang ang na-include dito sa pilot study. Pero sabihin na po natin na yung pagbaba po ng mga kaso at saka yung pag-improve ng ating healthcare utilization rate ay parang may kinalaman po doon sa alert levels na inabot natin sa Metro Manila, dahilan para palawagin pa natin yung ating pilot implementation.
The Department of Education bared on Tuesday that some public schools have withdrawn from the pilot run of limited face-to-face classes, which is set to start on November 15, 2021. Janice and Henta will tell us why.
Apart from 59 initial list of pilot schools identified by the Department of Education and the Department of Health for the limited face-to-face classes, 29 schools have backed out for the pilot implementation of in-person learning. According to DepEd, the main reason for this was that parents and the local government units were not in favor of holding physical classes due to fear of COVID-19 infection.
So nung nag-report ang mga regional directors natin, so yung 59 na yon, ang makakapagpatuloy lang ay 30. Kasi nga, yung iba ayaw na ng LGU, umatras na sila, yung iba ayaw ng magulang, o yung iba may tumaas ang cases.
Ang crucial kasi dito ang behavior ng COVID-19. Pag aandar yan si COVID-19, then we'll have to go back to our tables again, to our numbers again.
On the latest update by the DepEd, 3 schools from Region 5 and 6 will push through for the physical classes, while 8 in Region 7 and 9, 6 in Region 10, and 2 schools from Region 12. The said schools will come from the provinces of Masbate, Antique, Cebu, Zamboanga Sibugay, Zamboanga del Sur, Lanao del Norte, and North Cotabato. Although 29 schools have backed out, DepEd still continues to assess and evaluate schools to fill and complete its target of 120 pilot schools before the start of face-to-face classes on November 15.
Madadagdagan pa yan. In fact, based on the unofficial tally that we have, it can already reach, as of yesterday, to 70.
Okay.
Pero we need to revalidate. Meron po mga LGU na humihiling na sana masama din yung kanilang mga lugar, yung mga eskwelahan sa kanilang lugar. Ngunit kailangan pa rin ho nating suriing mabuti.
Meanwhile, DepEd also notifies private schools who intend to participate in physical classes that the submission of requirements for face-to-face classes are until October 22, 2021. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A candidate's popularity and track record are still considered as the main factors for his or her winnability in the 2022 elections. This despite having multiple endorsements from various political parties. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
Political affiliation will not guarantee more votes in elections, Professor Ramon Casiple said, once personal strength and achievements will be the basis of the voters. He explained that not all endorsement of various political party in a candidate are advantageous, especially if a senatorial aspirant is a common candidate of one or more ticket.
Kung positibo, oo. Kasi yung boto mo, madadagdagan, no? Kung dalawang panig na gano. Pero hindi sa lahat ng pagkakataon, hindi yan palaging sigurado. Kasi kung nagkaroon ka ng reputasyon na balimbing dahil doon sa ginawa mo, hindi ka na isasama nila sa listahan.
Among the senatorial candidates who have been endorsed by various groups or political parties include former Vice President Jejomar Binay, Senator Richard Gordon, former Senator Chis Escudero, Senator Joel Villanueva, former Senators Gringo Honasan and Loren Legarda, and Rafi Tulfo. But despite political endorsements, some candidates have chosen to remain independent as their loyalty is to the Filipino people. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Kabataan Party List has strongly opposed the disqualification case filed by the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, or NTF-LCAC, and the call for its resignation. Dante Amento tells us why live. Yes, Dante, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, William. Incumbent Representative Sara Ilago stresses that the Kabataan Party List is the only and true representative of youth in Congress. Their achievements include the passage of some laws for free public higher education, tertiary education subsidy, among others, during its 5 decades term. Thus, they strongly rebuked the recent disqualification case filed by the government's Anti-Insurgency Task Force, or the NTF-LCAC.
Sa obserbasyon natin, puro red tagging lang yung ginagawa ng NTF-LCAC, no? Hindi tinatantanan yung mga lehitimo at progresibong organisasyon.
The group also urges the COMELEC to dismiss the case filed against them, as well as the petition of some groups to cancel their registration. This morning, several parents groups such as the Yakap ng Magulang Movement and the League of Parents of the Philippines asked the poll body to prioritize and resolve the Kabataan Party List disqualification case immediately for them not to participate in the 2022 elections.
Nandito po kami ngayon sa COMELEC para po ipanawagan sa mga komisyoner na i-disqualify na ang Kabataan Party List, pati ng Gabriela at ang iba pa nilang kasama sa Makabayan Black, dahil napakarami po nating ebidensya na kumukonekta sa kanila sa pagkawala ng aming mga kabataan at ang iba pang kabataan sa buong bansa.
Meanwhile, William, the Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, has yet to resolve the case, which had its first hearing this afternoon. And that's the latest live from Quezon City. Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you, Dante Amento, for that live report.
The Department of Energy disclosed that a tight supply in the international world market and high demand are behind the rising oil prices. DOE Oil Industry Management Bureau Assistant Director Rodela Romero said Aggressive economic activities, opening of economies, and other sectors is one of the reasons of the oil price hike. The DOE, she said, is continuously monitoring domestic oil prices and conducting inspections to ensure the quality of products being sold in the market. They also met with oil companies and asked for the list of all promotional campaigns and freebies they extend to the transport sector to further disseminate it to the public. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic is the main reason for the delay in DPWH's 108.3 billion worth of infrastructure projects. During the Senate hearing, Undersecretary for Planning, PPP and Information Management Service Maria Catalina Cabral said their procurement process was also affected since last year due to the implementation of hard lockdowns. But Cabral assures they are now boosting its efforts to ramp up the procurement efforts. The department has also streamlined the process for acquiring right-of-way with a centralized system for processing to facilitate payment and validation.
The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee has ordered the detention of 2 more executives of Pharmaly Pharmaceutical Corporation for contempt. Meanwhile, the panel's preliminary report recommends the possible filing of charges against former officials of the government and Pharmaly. Harleen Delgado details why.
Formerly executives Mohit and Twinkle Dargani have been cited in contempt during the 12th Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing on the government's use of COVID-19 funds. This as they refused to submit the source documents, including their financial statements that were ordered subpoenaed by the committee. However, Mohit Dargani explains they are only abiding the advice of their legal counsel.
We're not declaring you guilty of any crime. We just want to detain you until you tell the Filipino people through this committee what is the truth. Do you realize that, sir?
I will consult this with the legal counsel.
The Dargani siblings will join formerly Director Lincoln Ong, who has been detained in the Senate building since September 21. Meanwhile, Senate Blue Ribbon Committee Chairperson Richard Gordon has bared some of the contents of the panel's initial report. The recommendations in the partial report include the possible filing of cases to deport former Presidential Economic Advisor Michael Yang. Another is the filing of charges in violation of Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act against Yang and former officials of the Procurement Service of the Department of Budget and Management or PSDBM, namely Christopher Lloyd Lau and Warren Leong and some Pharmaly officials. Also included are the filing of perjury and false testimony against Yang, formerly Director Lincoln Ong, and Regulatory Affairs Head Crizel Grace Mago. Estafa against Mago and Corporate Secretary and Treasurer Mohit Dargani, falsification of public documents against Leong, former Inspection Chief of PSDBM George Mendoza, and former PSDBM Inspector Mervin Tanquintic, and filing of cases for disobedience of summons issued by Congress and violation of the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. Senator Gordon clarifies the report is not yet final.
Meron po ako mga finding na partial report. Papakita ko muna sa aking mga kasama at saka po natin ilalabas sa lahat. Ito po ay partial report at ayokong gamitin pang itong misa na sabihin tapusin na naman ang investigasyon. Marami na po dyan na malalagay.
The 13th hearing is set on October 28. Harleen Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippine Red Cross sees malicious intent in false positive claims in their Subic branch. Aiko Miguel will tell us why live. Yes, Aiko, good evening. Why is PRC saying that there seems to be a malicious intent on the claims of false positive results?
Yes, William, good evening. The Research Institute of Tropical Medicine, or RITM, reviewed the alleged false positive COVID-19 test results produced by a Philippine Red Cross laboratory in Subic. But it appeared that they found no evidence for the claims and said the samples were valid and reliable. PRC Molecular Laboratories Chief Dr. Pauline Gino Bial said the complaints of false positive RT-PCR results in Subic Laboratory could have been better addressed privately than being discussed in a House hearing last September.
The only parang issue we have there is bakit ginawa in a public hearing. They could have written us, they could have, if there was no parang issue of malicious intent, di ba? They could have written us, they could have called us. We have a hotline number 143. And we could have addressed it immediately. Hindi, ginawa sa public hearing, parang nasira na yung reputation ng tao, wala naman basis yung kanilang binitawang mga accusations. Malicious yung intent kasi in-announce na sa public na ito, false positive yung Subic Lab ng Red Cross, wala naman silang basis of saying that. Hindi naman sila mga molecular biologists. Hindi naman nila nakita yung mga data namin. Hindi naman nila tinanong kung anong ginawa nyo, isang beses nyo lang ba rinan, inulit nyo ba, anong nakita nyong findings.
William, RITM also found out there was no contamination in the samples from PRC Subic laboratory. Dr. Ubial also said after the DOH's routine inspection, other PRC laboratories in NCR, Cebu, and Davao were cleared from alleged erroneous COVID-19 testing. With a good result released by RITM, PRC seems to regain their morale after a series of false positive claims.
Low morale sila kasi nga medyo paulit-ulit, and then there was so many questions on the integrity of the laboratory and the test. But because of the results from RITM, medyo nakabawi sila ng kanilang self-esteem and morale. So I think that was a good exercise also. Even without RITM, parang nagre-review rin kami every now and then, every quarter in fact, of our systems and processes. So nakakatulong naman yon na merong external audit na nangyari.
William, Dr. Obial added that there should be a criterion and clear guidelines to qualify when a complaint of false positive should be a basis for investigation. She also emphasized, although RT-PCR tests are considered as gold standard, no COVID-19 test is 100% accurate. And that is the latest live. Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you, Aiko Miguel, for that live report.
Private Hospital Association of the Philippines Incorporated fears hospital collapse in 6 months due to lack of nurses. JP Nunez reports why.
Nurses in private hospitals continue to apply for work opportunities outside the Philippines. Private Hospitals Association of the Philippines Incorporated estimates about 5 to 10% of private hospital health workers went abroad in the past 3 weeks.
Siguro kung hindi po natin medyo mapipigilan itong pag-alis na to, baka po in another 6 months, baka po maubusan na tayo ng mga nurses at mapipilay po talaga ang ating mga health facilities at healthcare system.
Meanwhile, PHAPI President Dr. Jose De Grano also stresses the pending release of COVID-19 claims from Philippine Insurance Corporation for some private hospitals which stemmed from 2020.
Nagbibigay naman po ng pakonti-konti ang PhilHealth sa mga non-COVID cases na recent. Pero yung pong dati na hinihingi namin na dapat ay mabayaran nila before the end of October, which was ito pong mga claims na ito ay nagmula pa po yan noong 2020, mga COVID claims. Yung po karamihan po sa mga yon ay halos hindi pa rin po na nabibigay ng ating ng PhilHealth.
Dante Guieran, PhilHealth President, previously said they are ramping up their system to provide faster transaction for COVID-19 claims. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Education and the National Task Force Against COVID-19 agreed to accelerate the vaccination of teachers and school personnel in public and private schools in the country. DepEd has created a framework which DepEd shall generate a line list of all those that have yet to be vaccinated. The vaccination will start in the DepEd's initial list of pilot schools approved by the DOH including the nominated schools in the National Capital Region.
Nakipagpulong po ang Kagawaran sa national sa NTF, yung vaccination task force ng gobyerno, para ma-accelerate yung vaccination ng teachers natin at ibang school personnel.
The Philippines recorded 4,496 new cases of novel coronavirus disease or COVID-19, pushing the nationwide case count to 2,731,735. In its latest bulletin, the Department of Health, or DOH, said that the number of active cases in the country is down to 63,637. Of these, 79% are mild, 8.97% are moderate, 5.2% are asymptomatic, 4.8% are severe, and 2% are in critical condition. The death toll also climbed to 40,972 after 211 more fatalities were logged today. Also, 9,609 more patients have recovered, raising the number of recoveries to 2,627,126, or 96.2% of the case total. Meanwhile, the overall global COVID-19 caseload has topped 241.2 million, while the deaths have surged to nearly 5 million, according to the Johns Hopkins University. The U.S. is the worst-hit country, with the world's highest number of cases and deaths at 45,051,922 and 726,267 respectively, according to the CSSE. India still follows in terms of infections with 34,094,373 cases and 452,454 deaths, while in terms of deaths, Brazil comes second with 603,465 fatalities.
The Philippine Maritime Group has started to deploy personnel in Pag-asa Island. They also built a police station in the area. This is to ensure the peace and order in the entire municipality of Kalayaan and to help guard the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone. Maritime NCR Chief Police Colonel Oliver Tanseco said the maritime personnel will also ensure the security of fishermen who allegedly experienced harassment from foreign vessels.
Sa Pag-asa Island po, ang ating po mga police are trained police investigators po para po kung kinakailangan po magkakaroon po tayo ng pag-arrest po ng mga barko na pumapasok po, nag-intrude, nagpo-poaching sa ating waters. Ang ating police po ang magkakandak ng investigation and for filing of cases in court.
The Philippine Coast Guard deployed additional free ride buses for the exclusive use of commuters in EDSA. The Interagency Council for Traffic requested these buses to decongested stations along the busway. IAC Chief and DOTR Assistant Secretary for Special Concerns, retired Brigadier General Manuel Gonzalez, lauds the speedy response of the Philippine Coast Guard to address the shortage of buses plying the EDSA route. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board on Monday issued a show cause order to the two bus consortiums operating along EDSA for failing to deploy a sufficient number of buses.
The Metro Manila Council issues guidelines on mall operations during the forthcoming holiday season. Mall operators, on the other hand, welcome this development amid the gradual reopening of the economy. Asher Cadapan Jr. tells us why.
Authorities and mall operators expect influx of customers as the holiday season approaches. SM Super Malls, among others, expressed their gratitude to the authorities for allowing malls to conduct grand sale events and extend mall hours. But the biggest mall chain in the country explains that the safety of their customers remains of paramount importance in their operation.
Lalo namin i-fortify or i-strengthen yung aming safe malling campaign, di ba? Para lahat ng mga customers namin will feel very, very safe when they come into the SM Supermalls and have a very enjoyable experience.
This as the Metro Manila Council prepares for the forthcoming holiday season. To help alleviate the traffic congestion across the metropolis, Metropolitan Manila Development Authority Chairman Benhar Abalos Jr. says that Grand Mall Sale will only be allowed during weekends and holidays.
Ito ay gagawin lamang tuwing Sabado at Linggo o kung meron mang mga holiday. Bakit? para wag sumabay sa traffic.
The Metro Manila mayors will also coordinate with malls to do their deliveries at night beyond rush hour. They also plan to meet with the mall operators to request to adjust their mall hours.
Ginawa itong nagsimula ng alas 11 para ang pasok hindi sabay-sabay hanggang mga alas 10 ng gabi o maski midnight pa, mas maganda. Para ang pagpunta sa mall hindi tayo nakakasabayan lalo na ng rush hours.
The Metro Manila Council also announces the interzonal and intrazonal travel guidelines of minors during Alert Level 3. Abalos says that minors are allowed to go out of their residence only if they are accompanied by at least one of their parents or adult guardians. But the MMDA clarifies that they are only allowed to go out and even go to malls if they are obtaining essential goods and services for employment purposes or individual exercise.
Ngayon po kung nagkataon na sa mall po sila pupunta, siguro po kailangan yung security ng mall, tatanungin kung may appointment po sila dun sa pupuntahan nila para po masiguro na ang pagpunta po nila sa mall ay talagang for essential services.
Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, the Victorian government will soon scrap hotel quarantine for double jab international visitors entering the state. Instead, a home-based isolation program will be put in place. The current 14-day mandatory quarantine period for international arrivals will also be shortened. According to Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews, the state is expected to implement the change when it hits 80% double-dose vaccination. The Centers for Disease Control in the United States have added Singapore in the very high-risk travel category. RK Lorca will tell us why live. Yes, RK, good evening.
Good evening, Mariel. The ultra-modern city-state Singapore has been placed in the level 4 or highest travel risk to COVID-19 by the US CDC from level 3 after a recent decision of Singapore to further loosen restrictions. This includes Singapore adding 8 countries from their vaccinated travel lane program, where fully vaccinated travelers can apply a quarantine-free entry. Some countries include United Kingdom and the United States. Moreover, the US CDC has recommended to avoid traveling to locations designated as level 4 categories, which have had more than 500 cases per 100,000 residents in the past 28 days. Some popular to-visit countries under this category are Austria, Belize, Botswana, Croatia, Greece, Ireland, Malaysia, Switzerland, Thailand, Turkey, and United Kingdom, whilst level 3 categories such as France, Philippines, South Korea, and some other countries applies to destinations that have had between 100 to 500 cases per 100,000 residents in 28 days. Level 2 or category under moderate risk countries includes Dominican Republic, Egypt, and Peru, while under low-risk COVID-19 destination or level 1 category includes New Zealand, but it has yet to open its doors to leisure travelers. Mariel, the CDC on its broader travel guidance recommended not to travel unless you are fully vaccinated. Yet international travel is one guarantee of not possessing additional risk and getting COVID-19 variants, even vaccinated. Back to you, Mariel.
RK, could you also state some countries under level 2 and level 1 from the US CDC's broader travel guidance?
Yes, the CDC also said that the level 2 categories are some countries from the Philippines, like our country, South Korea, and that's it.
Thank you, RK Lorca, for that live report. In this year's list put together by Forbes, only one Australian company was ranked among the top 500 employers in the world. Marvidal Finn will give us the details live. Yes, Marby, go ahead.
Mariel, Australian company Rio Tinto, which was ranked at number 471, is highly acclaimed for its healthy work atmosphere, employee benefits, performance management, and training opportunities, among others. The mining corporation is known for investing in staff development through in-house and online training and has consistently increased its diversity every year. Moreover, Rio Tinto introduced a new global minimum standard, providing employees 18 weeks of paid parental leave at full pay after giving birth or adopting a child where parents are the primary caregivers. Meanwhile, this year's best employer is
South Korea's Samsung Electronics, providing seamless customer experience and job security for the past year despite the COVID challenges. According to employees, the top 10 employers in the world are Samsung, IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Alphabet, Dell, Huawei, Adobe, and BMW Group. Marielle? Thank you, Marvidal Finn, reporting live from Perth, Australia. The successor of Hubble Space Telescope now prepares for its launching before the end of the year. Queenie Rivera details why live. Go ahead, Queenie.
Good evening, Marielle. The James Webb Space Telescope, coined as the world's most complex infrared telescope to date, is science's next great leap for humanity. It is said to help scientists resolve the numerous unanswered questions about the universe. The long-awaited debut of the $10 billion telescope is part of the 21st century's grand scientific project surrounding the cosmos. After 30 years of meticulous planning and conception, the James Webb will now replace the famous Hubble telescope. The JWST boasts a much bigger mirror of 6.5 meters and a tennis court-sized sun shield. The richer infrared instruments are said to have the ability to look deeper into space, therefore further back in time more than what the Hubble can ever do. The telescope arrived in Kourou, French Guiana from the US 5 days ago, where it will undergo its pre-flight fueling and final checks. After that, an Ariane 5 rocket will launch the telescope at observation point of 1.5 meter kilometers from Earth, where it's expected to detect the very first light emission in the universe 13.5 billion years ago. The telescope is expected to launch on December 18. Marielle?
Queenie, does this mean that the Hubble Space Telescope will now stop functioning?
It is not a replacement for the Hubble. They aim to use both telescopes simultaneously with a planned overlap in the future. Marielle?
Thank you, Queenie Rivera, for that live report. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Maria Latoza reporting live from Perth, Australia. Good evening.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of John, chapter 13, verses 34 to 35, it says, "A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another. As I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have loved one to another." And those are the reasons behind the news, October 19, 2021. I am Herdine Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Ilang rehiyon pa lamang ang na-include dito sa pilot study. Pero sabihin na po natin na yung pagbaba po ng mga kaso at saka yung pag-improve ng ating healthcare utilization rate.
Hindi yan palaging sigurado. Kasi kung nagkaroon ka ng reputasyon na balimbing dahil doon sa ginawa mo, hindi ka na isasama nila sa listahan.
Ngayon po kung nagkataon na sa mall po sila pupunta, siguro po kailangan yung security ng mall, tatanungin kung may appointment po sila dun sa pupuntahan nila para po masiguro na ang pagpunta po nila sa mall ay talagang for essential services.